Okay. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the executive meeting on 31st of the... Can we have a bit quiet, please? Thank you. Welcome to the executive meeting of the 31st of March 2022. Present is the Leader of the Council, myself, John Halsall, John Keyes, the Deputy Leader and the Executive Member for Finance and Housing, Parry Bath, the Executive Member for Environment and Leisure, Graham Howe, the Executive Member for Children's Services, Charles is not here, Stuart Monroe, Executive Member for Business and Economic Development, Gregor Murray, the Executive Member for Resident Services, Communications and Missions, Wayne Smith, the Executive Member for Planning and Enforcement, and Bill Sohn, the Executive Member for Neighbourhoods and Communities. In attendance is Anne and Hunter and Callum Wareham from Democratic Services, and present is also Clive Jones, the Leader of the Opposition, Imogen Shepherd-Bay, Leader of Wokingham Town Council, and Councillor for Winnersh. No. Embrook, I apologise, and Peter Humphreys to ask a question. Thank you. Please ensure that any mobile devices or mobile phones are switched off if you're remote. If you're participating via Teams, when you're speaking or being asked to speak, please mute your microphones. If you do not mute your microphone, it will be muted for you. To assist people viewing the meeting, could everybody participating via Teams turn off their cameras and only turn them on when speaking, and also introduce themselves whenever they speak. Please note that to avoid the chat function on Microsoft Teams being used inappropriately, it has been disabled for the meeting. Please also note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. Thank you. Apologies for Pauline Jorgensen, who is online to answer the question, and Charles Margetts, apologies for the meeting. Minutes.
Peter Must is on twice.
Peter Must, please switch one of your presences off. Thank you. The minutes of the meeting for the last is any issues with the minutes of the meetings for any? No. Okay. Can I have a proposer and a seconder? John Kaiser and Graham Howe. Any declarations of interest? There's no financial things here tonight, so interest in companies is not necessary. Okay, no declaration of interest. Public question time. Mr. Most. Peter Must. Fire away.
Can you hear me?
Yep, perfectly.
Okay, thank you. Following work on a draft borough-wide parking management action plan by the Community and Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee in 2019, it was reported by the Director of Locality and Customer Services to that committee at its meeting on 2nd September 2019 that, and I quote, in 2019-20, the council is to review its parking management strategy for the borough. If agreed, this document will go out for full public consultation before adoption by the council. Following this, and in line with the strategy documents, an action plan will be developed and further policies and procedures put in place. Close quotes. Could the executive member say what has happened since that statement?
Yes, Mr. Must. Good evening. Proposals to commence a borough-wide review of the council's parking management strategy and to prepare an action plan in the final quarter of 1920 financial year was suspended due to the impacts of COVID pandemic on parking demand. Apart from impacting resident and visitor parking behaviours, both on street and the council's car parks, the pandemic also affected the ways in which essential street assessment service could be undertaken by the council's officers and consultants. I know, for instance, in Twyford, where we started some of the work, there were an awful lot more people working from home and parked on the streets than is normal. So it was very difficult to get a representative sample. However, a pilot parking management project to assess the parking behaviour and develop solutions in Twyford, for which the majority of resident surveys had already been completed prior to COVID, was resumed in November 2021, when we considered things had got more back to normal. A number of supplementary surveys to measure curbside occupancy, parking characteristics and street capacity were concluded in February. The result of these surveys are currently being assessed and will enable a number of the broader parking management measures proposed in the draft Borough-wide Parking Management Action Plan to be reviewed in a post-COVID context, enabling aspects such as commuter parking, resident parking zones and permit policy, and greater daytime on-street parking demands by those now working from home more frequently can be considered. In addition, a review of the Council's off-street parks order was carried out and has resulted in a number of changes which are currently progressing through statutory procedures. Both of these activities will inform the Parking Management Action Plan and enable a revised draft to be presented for public consultation in autumn 2022.
Do you have a supplementary, Peter?
Yes, if I got the last gist of that, it is intended to bring the plan forward for public consultation later in this year.
Yeah.
How will you be conducting that?
A normal consultation. I think we normally do wide-ranging communications. We generally put things on the website. We will put stuff in libraries and that sort of thing. We'll generally make sure as many people as possible know about it so we can get as much input as possible.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Many thanks, Peter. Peter Humphreys.
Good evening. The council has announced a target of carbon zero by 2030, excuse me, and plan to plant 250,000 trees in the 5 years to 2025. Yet actions speak louder than words. Rather than reducing electricity usage in property it owns or has influence over, it is increasing usage. Take the unopened section of the North Wokingham Distribution Road, which has been illuminated every night since last autumn, sorry. Amazingly, some of the Xmas illuminations in Broad Street are still switched on each night, whilst the existing Wokingham Library and the new Carnival Pool are illuminated 24/7. It can't be for security reasons, as it's unlikely the pool will be stolen. Of new trees planted, a high percentage have died due to lack of watering. On dead trees roundabout, even replacements have been allowed to die. And there has been the deliberate mass destruction of trees at various sites. You'll agree that Wokingham is thus in a negative position with regard to trees. How many trees will now need to be planted by the target date to achieve a net increase of 250,000? And of that increase, how many will reach their 10th birthday?
Thank you for your question, Peter. It's good to see you again. The climate emergency remains a key priority for the council and for our residents, and we all must do our bit to reduce carbon emissions. As a council, we want to take an active role as possible in tackling our properties and our carbon footprint, and we're continuing to look at ways to improve our properties and make them more energy efficient. The council has also a responsibility towards the safety and security of our residents and employees, and for this reason, some night illumination might be required. The library, for example, will be illuminated outside of opening hours while staff from other departments based in the building are working, whilst cleaning is being undertaken and the emergency lighting is left on as per a legal requirement. Carnival Pool is a construction site and the power is managed by the contractor. The lights are left on for workers and for the security staff that remain there. The council is committed to working with businesses to increase awareness of good energy efficiency practices, and we can recommend contractors and staff to switch off lights and be more climate conscious. Regarding your comments about mature trees being removed, it is true that development will result in some of the mature trees being lost, but we can compensate for this over the long term through the provision of replacements. There are mature trees in urban areas now that were planted alongside new developments many generations ago. The council is developing a tree policy that is viable and works with legislative and guidance boundaries. This is currently being consulted on alongside the core strategy. The trees that are planted by developers are part of their planning obligations, and these are not being counted in the 250,000 tree planting project. The 250,000 tree planting target is looking at delivering schemes outside of these requirements. For example, across the council-owned sites, including country parks and public open spaces, sites owned by our town and parish councils, and community groups, schools and private landowners who have the space appropriate for hedgerow and woodrow creation. The council is also developing a tree strategy for the borough, which will include guidance around developer responsibility in relation to felling and replanting trees. The policies within the developing tree strategy will be linked to the core strategy currently under consultation. From October 2021 to the end of March 2022, over 15,000 trees have been planted by various community, volunteer, school, town and parish councils, WBC, the Countryside Service and by private landowners. The council will continue to actively engage with the community to support the delivery of this target.
Yes, well, I don't know if you want to ask the first question about why the lights are left on a new road that's still not open for several months. But apart from that, you obviously don't seem to be monitoring how many trees have been cut down. So how are you actually going to know if you're going to reach carbon zero if you've got no records of what's going on? And as you've only planted 15,000 trees, you're well short of the annual target, which should be about 50,000 on average.
Well, I would need to speak to Pauline in a bit more detail about the Northwest Distributor Road.
I can answer that, Gregor, if you like.
Thank you, Pauline. I'll come to that in just a second. My understanding, and I'm sure Pauline will hopefully confirm this, is that that piece of the Northwest Distributor Road is actually still owned by the contractor that was building it. And as per the same as your own house and your own back garden, we do not have the right to ask you to turn your light off. If they want to leave it on overnight, all we can do is ask them, but they are under no obligation to do it.
But they're building the road for you, aren't they?
The road was going to be open, I think, in June, actually. So, but if they choose as a private contractor to have lights on a road that they own, there is nothing that we can do as a council other than ask them to turn them off. In terms of the tree planting, yes, some trees have been cut down. Some trees have unfortunately been left to die by developers. I live on a development myself where that has happened. We as a council are asking the developers to live up to their obligations. Many of them will overplant the number of trees that they're required to put into the ground on the assumption that some will die before they complete on the site. I'm sure Wayne would be able to give you some more details around what his department are doing in order to make sure that more trees get planted by developers. One thing I can also add is that I've seen the supplementary planning guidance that is being proposed as part of the local plan update. I know that the tree strategy that's being developed and will be included as part of that includes some very, very high targets for tree planting, but also ensuring that trees get to maturity as part of our local plan update.
Pauline, you're going to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, Gregor gave a very comprehensive answer. I think the only thing to add is that the lights, not only are they currently in the control of the developer, but they haven't been certified yet. So they couldn't be handed over to us yet. In any case, the development is not yet finished.
Imogen.
Good evening. Okay. Right. In Wokingham, we have suffered increasing antisocial behaviour due to the late night drinking in the town. This is resulting in broken windows, smashed glasses and bottles around the town, destroyed flower planters and loud behaviour in the early hours, waking up the residents who live in the town. This is blighting the lives who live, work and use the town centre area, especially as the mess is still there in the morning. We are in desperate need of a solution that ensures that the few people do not make things so unpleasant for the many. It then came, much to my surprise, to find that the new ASB team only intend to operate till 2 a.m. Most of the alcohol-related antisocial behaviour we see in the town occurs after 3 a.m. as the bars close and people are heading home. I've suggested ways in which WBC can find funding for itself and the police via late night levy on late licences, which is well within its power if needed. However, we desperately need extra support in Wokingham Town now, especially in the early hours and at the weekend. Please can you explain what commitments Wokingham Borough Council are going to take in tackling this significant problem? Thank you.
Thank you, Imogen. Antisocial behaviour problems across the borough are discussed at the Wokingham Multi-Agency Problem Solving Task Group, which is chaired by Thames Valley Police. Issues that have been occurring in Wokingham Town were discussed at the last meeting, Several actions have been agreed, including the police and council are planning to operate an operation to check licence standards and customer compliance in Wokingham Town. The council's licensing team and police have required a problematic licence holder to update the licence conditions to be more robust in relation to CCTV and other security measures. The notice of variation is posted on the window of the premises for residents and other interested parties to view, comment and make representations. In addition to this, joint visits with the police licensing have been undertaken to several Wokingham late night licensed venues. It was agreed that they will work with the door staff to ensure customers are not leaving their venues with bottles and glasses. Licensing liaison officers have also been looking for broken glass and engaging with venues during their weekly patrol in Wokingham. It is also anticipated that Wokingham Pub Watch Group will be able to restart meetings again shortly. The viability of implementing a late night levy has recently been reviewed. In order to put this scheme in place, it requires a minimum number of late night licences. Unfortunately, as it currently stands, there is a lack of late night licensed premises in Wokingham to make it possible to implement one. The council wants to encourage people into our local towns to enjoy the facilities and businesses and to help support the local economy. However, we also want to ensure that a few individuals do not detract from the majority of well-behaved people enjoying the town and its amenities. We anticipate that these actions will send a clear message to both the licensee and anybody thinking of behaving badly. Thank you.
Well, it's good to know that they're going to try and stop them leaving pubs with glass bottles, and that the pub watch team are going to re-establish themselves. The problem we have is not so much in the bars themselves, it's when people leave. They're going to look for taxis, they're wandering around, they're walking home, and that's generally where we have the problem. And so it's really, obviously we want people to enjoy the town, but we need more support on the street as people leave, and evidence that we need some controls in that area. So I'm kind of asking what sort of solutions you would suggest for this piece of work.
Well, let me say that, that the incidents that you're saying occur after 2 o'clock. Sorry, after 3 o'clock. Right, okay. I'm not around at that time of the morning to actually say that I've seen it happen, but nevertheless.
We have CCTV around the town hall. We can see it happening.
Okay. The fact is that our ASB teams will be working up until 2 o'clock, as it is at the moment. And after that time, obviously, the police will be in attendance as well. And the sort of issues that you're raising, I would think, hopefully the police will deal with. Let me say that the times of the antisocial behaviour team is very flexible. We don't even know whether we need 10 officers throughout the night or 2 officers throughout the night at the moment. It's very early stages. It is flexible. And should there be a high demand for more officers or longer hours, then that can be reviewed. But obviously at this stage, it's early stages. What I will say is, just to give you some idea of what we are doing, tomorrow night we have some of our new antisocial behaviour teams out with the police and going to the gig house to have a look at, see what happens and try and get some Friday. Yes, that's tomorrow night. Yeah. To see exactly what's happening and how we can best improve the service. Thank you.
My recollection, Bill, is that the Liberal Democrats voted against the repatriation of our antisocial behaviour.
Well, I think they did. Yes. I think we're going to find that the sort of service that we're going to offer is going to be very beneficial to our residents. So we will see the changes.
Hope we'll get the Liberal Democrats' support in the future.
Well, yes, we do.
Gary. Okay, he'll go. Parry, I think. Is it Parry?
It is. Parry. Thank you, Chairman. The report is all about temporary closure of Remnant footpath number 4. And that's to accommodate the Henley
Before you
Festival.
start, I should really declare an interest on this and not vote, because I'm not only a resident, but I'm also the chairman of local parish council.
Thank you. The report is all about temporary closure of Remnant footpath number 4 to accommodate the Henley Festival, which is a musical festival, Mr. Chairman, and the festival trust applies for this application annually, so it's nothing new. It happens every year around about this time of the year, and it's really asking for us to approve the making of an order for the closure of the footpath and include within the closure 620-metre section for evening performances from Wednesday the 6th of July to Sunday the 10th of July. So it's an annual event, Mr. Chairman. I'll take any questions if there are any. Thank you. It's a relief I can take my mask off. I'm taking over the chair for this because John has excused himself. Are there any questions? Yes, Stuart.
One question, having dealt with this in my early years on the council at the Highway Control Board, there was always a debate about what times these closures happen. Is it in line with the requirement that the festival requests?
Absolutely. We've consulted widely on this, and the officers are fully involved, and the times have been agreed as per their requirements. Thank you.
So, taking the chair again, John.
Thank you very much. Void Property Works contract. These are for our homes that sit in the HRA. Just to explain very quickly what a void is. A void is a house that becomes vacant, and that can occur for a number of reasons. Somebody goes into care, they move to a smaller home or a larger home. Now, we have a policy of visiting every home before we put any new tenants into those homes, and in a lot of cases we do quite substantial refurbishment, because over the years, especially if you've had somebody elderly living in the home, they're not always up to keeping the house up, the upkeep of the house. So, and if we're giving a new home to somebody, I think nobody would argue it's not a bad idea to give them a fresh start. So the reason it's here is because it's quite a substantial contract. It's a contract of over £5 million. As I say, it sits in the HRA, and it's really to allow us to make sure that our housing stock is maintained at a decent standard. I will answer any questions. Yes.
Okay, sorry, I just can't find in here. How many properties does it apply to? How many houses do we actually give for these poor people?
Well, these houses actually, the total number of homes is around about 2,700. It goes up and down as people buy their social homes.
Okay, sorry,
they still have a right to buy, but it's normally between 27 and 2,800 homes.
And am I right in thinking, John, it's roughly about 10% each year that dip in and out of voids?
Yeah, it varies year to year, basically, but there is a great demand now for social housing. And of course, part of the problem is the time we spend with these out of action. So it's really important that we're very critical about what we do. But at the same time, if we're giving somebody a new home, it's their new start in life. So we should do everything we can to make that as fresh as possible. Yeah. Yes.
So it's my understanding that of these affordable homes, a number of them are at social rents?
They are all social rents. They are all in the HRA, so they will all be social rents. The other thing it gives us an opportunity to do at the time is there normally is substantial changes with regards to insulation, the type of boilers that are fitted to these homes, the upgrade of kitchens, all those sorts of things will take place at that time. That's why it's such a high number.
Everybody happy with it? Okay. Sorry. The recommendation is that the executive approves the business case to enable a housing service to procure a suitably qualified, experienced and competent contractor for the delivery of void property works as required for the council housing stock. Those in favour? So carried unanimously. Luke? The next item has been deferred and approved. Sorry. It's been deferred for more information and an addition of a review, and we have to vote on that. Is everybody happy with that deferral? Thank you. Carried unanimously. So we now move to page 67 on the arrangements for new enforcement and safety service, which must be you, Bill.
Thank you very much. Well, today is the day that we leave the public protection partnership we've shared with West Berks and Bracknell Forest Council. As from tomorrow, the service will be run in-house. After 12 months of considerable negotiations, agreement has been reached with both partners for an exit strategy which is fair to all concerned. I would like to thank our officers and staff and those of West Berks Council for their work in bringing this to a conclusion. Service managers will be in place to oversee environmental health, licensing, residential and environmental protection and antisocial behaviour. And we're grateful for the work of the partnership has done over the years, and we thank the officers and staff who have assisted us in the past. We believe that in bringing these services back in-house, we will be able to offer our residents a service that meets their needs and their expectations. The service offered by our antisocial behaviour team will be able to respond to incidents rapidly and efficiently by being available during times of increased demand. At this moment, some of the team are engaged in ensuring the safety of members of the Ukraine refugees arriving in our borough by checking that the homes and the hosts are best suited to the needs and safety of these unfortunate people. And that's a point I'm sure you would all agree is very important. Some trading standards and ancillary services will continue to be provided by West Berks, as shown on page 69 of the report. I won't go through them all, it would be only extend the evening too long, but it's on page 69. Tonight, we are to vote on the recommendations as shown on page 67. Again, I'm quite happy to read them, but if you're happy to accept them as they are on the page, I will read them out if you wish. Otherwise, I would propose that we take the 4 recommendations en bloc unless anybody has any objections. Or any questions at all? Yeah.
Bill, I guess the important thing about this is the flexibility. And we've needed more than flexibility over the last 2 years with COVID, and now we have the Ukrainian situation. Am I right in saying that if we didn't have that flexibility, it'd be very difficult to deal with that type of arrangement?
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate in the timing of this, the fact that it's coming back in now, just at a time when the need is greater, and the fact that we will be able to support the Ukrainian refugees in a more practical way is only to be an advantage.
Yes, it is no use ringing somebody in West Berkshire at 6 o'clock in the evening because somebody's got their bonfire going and filling your house with smoke. I mean, say this is going to be hopefully.
I think the whole service will be much improved. I think, with antisocial behaviour, along with items such like licensing, local knowledge is such a benefit to us, and be able to go out to our towns and parishes, our local residents and our local ward members to be able to gather information is a much better proposition.
And I would suggest that the ultimate sanction to licence holders, if we have the problem in town, like Imogen was talking about, is to actually withdraw the licence.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. If there's no other points, no.
Certainly well done, Bill, bringing this home. It nicely knits into the work we're doing with the Community Safety Partnership, Domestic Violence Manager and the Antisocial Behaviour Manager. And I'm hopeful that we should be able to help Wokingham Town Council out in their issues and problems,
Absolutely.
Even though the Liberal Democrats voted against it. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, so can we go to the vote on the 4 recommendations? And are you happy that we take them on block? Yeah. Okay, those in favour? No, none against, I take it, so that is passed.
Come to the last item on the agenda and the last item of municipal year, page 81, the Delivering the Gorse Ride Regeneration Project. John.
Thank you very much. The Gorse Ride Regeneration Project is the flagship scheme in the Council's response to the escalating need for more and better social housing. The provision of well-planned and delivered social housing has never been more important, and data on a national and a local level shows that homelessness is very much on the increase, with an escalating demand for temporary accommodation. Not only impacting the council's future temporary accommodations budget, but it's having a major effect on those residents whose lives are disrupted by not having a stable and secure home. The use of compulsory purchase powers will enable all the necessary land interests to be acquired to secure the delivery of the regeneration of Gorse Ride and the consequential benefits to the local community. The scheme will deliver improvements to the housing stock within the borough through the demolition of 178 very poor quality housing units and the creation of 249 new, well-designed homes. It will bring vitality to the area and enrich the community for the future. The scheme will provide significant social, economic and environmental benefits to the local area by creating a new community of which residents can feel proud. New jobs for local people and significant public round and landscaping improvements will also be part of this scheme. And we have done a recent social value analysis of social value generating on the regenerating of Gorse Ride. And of course, people who are moving house into new homes, they're finding that their perception of antisocial behaviour in their neighbourhood is a lot lower level. The council remains committed to, I think this is really important, the council remains committed to acquiring third-party property interests voluntarily without the need to exercise CPO. And the package we offer is a substantial, generous package. However, the approval for the council to proceed with making compulsory is sought as a very last resort. The ability to include CPO after all other stages of negotiations have been exhausted will enable the regeneration scheme to proceed in accordance with the time frame, which not only saves money, but means these people can move into these homes sooner. Until now, the council's been able to purchase property successfully through negotiations, but to ensure the delivery of the project for the whole community, the council needs to have the right to exercise CPO powers if needed. If in deciding the use of the powers to make CPO, the council has regard to all other compulsory purchase powers included in section 17 of the Housing Act, which authorises the acquisition of land for housing purposes. The council has chosen to utilise its power in section 226 of the 1990 Town and Country Planning Act because it considers the regeneration of the site will deliver wider benefits to the community and the locality. Just a bit of a backstory on this, we have delivered in the last 5 years 2,000 affordable homes. And I will put my neck out and say I'm hoping that in the next 3 years we will be delivering a further 2,000 homes in this borough because we do need them. There is no question. In Gary's question, he talks about, is it moral to do compulsory purchase? What is not moral is not delivering home for the most vulnerable people in our community. Thank you. Any questions?
It's not a question. I think it's just a well presented report, and I thank you for that, John, and well deserved by the residents of our borough.
Thank you. Yes, Stuart.
Obviously, looking through the detailed report, are you hopeful that maybe some of these people see sense before we go through more of this process? Or are we at the end of the line?
Look, we're spending, we even the new houses will sit in the HRA, but it's still public money, okay? We take normally 3 estimates, and we will normally try and negotiate with residents. In fact, part of the package is to offer them homes back on the estate, with either, in some cases, it will be joint equity, which will help them, because the homes that are there at the moment are extremely poor, and they were only designed to be temporary homes anyway.
I have no question on the process, John, because I know what you're doing and how you're trying to please. I think one thing all members should get you to do is get them to go and see the quality of these, because we hear a lot about quality of new housing, but the quality up there is fantastic, and you know, the first phase and the work that's been done up there is brilliant.
Well, thank you for that. I think the other important thing is that although we've delivered 2,000 affordable homes in the parlance of Wokingham to quite a lot of people are not affordable. So nearly 50% of the homes we've delivered in the last 5 years have been social rent homes. And we have now changed our policy with regards to developers. And when we ask for S106 homes, we are now asking for 70% of those homes to be allocated to social housing to meet the need of the people on our housing waiting list. Thank you.
I think really it's central to what we're trying to do in hardship and deprivation, and it's a very good job that we're doing, and well done, John. Those in favour? So carried unanimously, and that's on the recommendation on page 81, which I should have read. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for turning up, and good night.